I once believed Victoria would love me forever, until compromising photos sent by her lover shattered that illusion. The red marks under her collar hadn't faded, and in my drawer, her morning sickness mug still sat. She was carrying my child, yet she laughed it off as a burden and aborted it. Right as Professor Miller presented a contract marked risk of amnesia, I signed it, declaring, "I'll proceed immediately." "All right. It begins in 7 days," Professor Miller said before turning to leave. The light from outside reflected off the wedding ring imprint on my ring finger, like an indelible scar. After signing the contract, a series of detailed pre-op examinations were required. By the time I left Westlake Research Institute, it was completely dark. Outside the Westlake Research Institute gates, a crowd gathered around a limited edition Bentley, their eyes filled with envy. Victoria stepped out of the car, carrying a bouquet of flowers, and walked toward me. "Ethan, I came straight here after my flight to wait for you, surprise." Before I could answer, she thrust the flowers into my arms, then intimately linked her arm through mine, complaining, "But you worked so late today, I was afraid of disturbing your research, so I didn't dare call you." Her words made me want to laugh. If I hadn't seen the red marks under her collar, and smelled the men's cologne on her, I might genuinely have believed she came straight to pick me up after her business trip, but in reality, Victoria hadn't been on a business trip at all. She'd spent the entire week with another man. I shifted my gaze to her neck and asked, "What happened to your neck?" "That red mark is quite obvious." Victoria froze for a moment, then quickly pulled her collar higher with her hand, saying uneasily, "I was on a business trip. You know, Coastal City is like spring all year round, with lots of mosquitoes." "Really? But you told me you were going to Riverton before your trip." Victoria's face immediately paled a bit. She let out a couple of dry laughs, and continued to explain, "Ethan, you must have misremembered. I must have told you I was going to Ocean View." "I didn't misremember," I said seriously. "You sent me your flight details before you left, and it clearly said Riverton." Saying this, I took out my phone, and started looking through our chat history. The next second, Victoria snatched the phone from my hand. Her expression was very unpleasant. "Ethan, I came to pick you up right after my flight, and instead of asking if I'm tired from my trip, you are nitpicking over tiny details like this. What do you mean by that?" Perhaps it was due to a guilty conscience, but Victoria's tone unconsciously became louder when she realized that quite a few people were starting to gather around us. She immediately softened her tone and apologized. "Sorry, Ethan, I just got a little flustered." Before I could speak, a voice from behind suddenly called out to me. My colleague, Mia, ran up to me with a stack of documents. "Ethan, you forgot your contract." The contract was in duplicate. I must have left it casually on my office desk before leaving. After I took the contract, Mia still wanted to tell me something more, but the next second, Victoria's sharp gaze forced her words back, and she could only hurriedly bid me farewell and leave. Once Mia was out of sight, Victoria looked at the contract in my hand, which confirmed the experiment, and asked suspiciously, "Ethan, what kind of contract is this?" I casually placed the contract in my bag. "It's nothing. We've recently been developing a specialized drug to combat Alzheimer's disease, and I'm temporarily in charge of the contract side of things." Victoria had always shown no interest in my work, so she didn't press further. Instead, she warned me, "Honey, I know you're involved in drug research, and spend all your time in the lab, but that doesn't mean some young women won't set their sights on you. I saw the way that girl was looking at you just now, and it wasn't right. Don't let her mislead you, or I'll be heartbroken." Victoria's expression was very serious, as if she were worried I would cheat on her any second, but she was the one who had cheated first. Victoria and I fell in love during college and married after graduation. After our marriage, she chose to take over Sterling Enterprises, while I dedicated myself to pharmaceutical research. We each took on our respective roles, and it had now been 5 years since we joined hands. I had always believed we would continue to trust each other and live lovingly together. But 6 months ago, Victoria started frequently hiding to answer calls, and stayed out all night several times. Out of trust for her, I didn't think much of it, until 3 days ago, when I received a photo of her with another man. The moment I saw the photo, I felt like the world around me was crumbling, and I was caught in a nightmare. Later, more and more evidence told me this wasn't a dream. Victoria had indeed cheated. She had fallen for a bartender at the Hideaway, a NAVE young man barely 20 years old, and those photos were sent to me by that man, Dylan. Seeing my prolonged silence, Victoria grew anxious. Why aren't you speaking, Ethan? You don't actually have feelings for some other girl, do you? No. I need you to promise me you'll only love me your entire life and never cheat. I gave a bitter laugh and looked at Victoria. Okay, I promise, as long as you don't cheat, I'll never fall for anyone else. Hearing my words, Victoria instinctively lowered her head, looking a little guilty, and said no more. We returned to the car in silence. But as soon as I sat in the passenger seat, I felt something under my feet. I bent down to pick it up, and saw that it was a piece of women's intimate wear with several black straps. Victoria's breath hitched, and she quickly snatched it away. Swallowing, she stammered in explanation. My car was borrowed a few days ago, and I can't believe they didn't even clean their things out. How outrageous. But her lie was too transparent. I couldn't even find a reason to convince myself to believe it. My heart felt tightly clenched. I closed my eyes and said in a low voice, "Then you can put these things away, and return them to your friend later. That's not important." Victoria directly tossed the lingerie out the car window into the trash can. "If this makes you unhappy, I'll throw it away immediately. Ethan, only your feelings matter most to me." She looked at me with such genuine eyes, as if I were her entire world. But the next second, my phone screen lit up. I had received a message from Dylan. "Did you see the gift I left for you?" My hands couldn't stop trembling slightly. Victoria asked casually, "Who sent that message?" I didn't answer. Instead, I carefully saved the chat history on my phone. The next day when I woke up, Victoria was already gone. She had left food on the dining table, and a note. "Honey, Sterling Enterprises had an emergency, so I left. There's soup I personally cooked on the table. Remember to eat it. Love you." In the past, Victoria, always wholeheartedly pampered by me, had never stepped foot in a kitchen, let alone cooked a meal herself. When she learned to make soup, and for whom, the answer was obvious. I poured all the soup from the table into the trash can. Just as I turned to leave, I saw the clothes Victoria had changed out of last night still on the sofa, and in the pocket of her clothes was a conspicuous note. My intuition told me something was off about this note, so I took it out directly. When I saw the information on the note, I felt as if the blood in my body had stopped flowing. It was an abortion appointment slip, with Victoria's name written as the patient. When did Victoria get pregnant? Why was she going to have an abortion? Clutching the abortion appointment slip in my hand, my memory vaguely returned to 3 years ago. At that time, Victoria had offended a business rival, and was tragically kidnapped. To rescue her successfully without alarming the kidnappers, I ventured alone into their hideout. Later, Victoria was successfully rescued, but I narrowly escaped death, almost losing my life. I remembered being in a coma for a full month. The moment I opened my eyes, Victoria cried and nestled into my arms. She earnestly told me, "Ethan, let's have a child. That way, even if one of us isn't here someday, there will still be a child to keep the other company. The fear of losing you is too great. I truly can't bear it alone." After hearing her words, my eyes welled up too. But Victoria thought for a moment, then added, "Ethan, actually, I just want to leave a child for you, because if you are truly gone one day, then I'll have no reason to live." I hugged her tightly then, laughing at her for spouting such nonsense. But in truth, I had long taken her words to heart. Yet now we really had a child. Why did Victoria want to abort him? I grabbed my car keys, and rushed to Sterling Enterprises, determined to confront her. Victoria had given me almost equal authority at Sterling Enterprises, so I walked unimpeded to the door of her office. Just as I was about to push the door open, I heard voices talking inside. It was Victoria and her best friend, Ashley. "Victoria, are you really sure about the abortion? If you don't mind me asking, is the child Dylan's?" "Shut up." Victoria laughed. "Even though I started a flirtation with Dylan 3 months ago, we hadn't gone all the way, so the child is Ethan's." Ashley was a little surprised. "If that's the case, why are you still getting rid of the baby? I thought you two always wanted a child." A dull ache throbbed in my heart. Yes, why did she insist on aborting the child? Victoria's languid voice came from inside the room. "There's no way around it. Blame it on the timing. This child came at the wrong time. I don't want to end my relationship with Dylan right now, so having a child would just be a burden to me." Ashley gasped. "Victoria, you are done for. You've truly fallen deeply in love with Dylan this time." "Haha, you are silly." Listening to the bursts of laughter from inside, I gradually became overwhelmed by profound sorrow. So, Dylan held such significant weight in Victoria's heart now. Enough for her to kill our hard-won child for him. But the answer to the question no longer mattered. I slowly turned and left Sterling Enterprises. In less than 7 days, I would completely vanish from Victoria's world. It was late when I finally returned home. Victoria rushed to the entryway and hugged me tightly, asking where I had been. I calmly said, Westlake Research Institute lost some data, so I worked overtime to recover it. She buried her head in my chest and murmured, Ethan, I waited for you all night. I was too worried to eat. I slowly shook my head, but the truth was, 3 hours earlier, Dylan had sent me a photo of him and Victoria having a candlelight dinner together. Victoria continued, this Saturday is our wedding anniversary. I'm planning to decorate nicely. What do you think? I answered expressionlessly, whatever you want. Okay, then I'll definitely prepare a wonderful surprise for you. But that means I might not be able to pay much attention to you for a while. But it's all in preparation for our wedding anniversary. Ethan, you understand, right? I nodded slightly. Of course I understood, because she planned to use that time to be with Dylan. But it didn't matter, because I had a gift for Victoria too. She didn't know that our wedding anniversary was the day I was scheduled to leave for my experiment. In the following days, Victoria was indeed coming home late and leaving early, and the frequency of Dylan's provocative photos sent to me also increased. My heart had become numb. There was no significant emotional fluctuation. I used that time to pack up all the items in our home that held memories of Victoria and me. Then, I sent them all to the junkyard. On Saturday, Victoria had meticulously put on elegant makeup and wore a red dress, ready to spend our 5th wedding anniversary with me. But just before dinner, she suddenly received a phone call. I heard Dylan's voice from the other end. Victoria, someone's causing trouble at the hideaway. They are specifically looking for me. I'm so scared. Victoria stood up in a panic. Don't be scared. Give me 5 minutes. I'll be right there. After hanging up, Victoria hurriedly mumbled something about an emergency at Sterling Enterprises and left without looking back. Watching her hurried departure, I gave a bitter smile and silently went to the room to retrieve the suitcase I had prepared long ago. Next, I placed all the printed compromising photos Dylan had sent me onto the table. After a final glance at the home, I turned and left, never looking back. Victoria drove directly to the hideaway, quickly got out of the car, and rushed inside. But what she saw was Dylan casually sitting by the bar, drinking. Seeing her, Dylan quickly smiled and went up to her, his large hands settling on Victoria's waist. Victoria, you are finally here. I've been waiting for you for so long. Victoria frowned slightly. Is this what you meant by being in danger? There was clearly nothing wrong here, yet she had rushed over, abandoning their anniversary. Dylan pouted and said plaintively, well, that's because you made me wait so long. The bad guys have already been chased away. Then, he smiled again. But it's okay, as long as you are here, I'm happy. Victoria had no resistance to his playful behavior. She couldn't bring herself to scold him further. With a sigh, she grabbed her car keys, ready to leave. I left an important dinner to come here today. Since you are fine, I'll be going. Don't go. Dylan grabbed Victoria, entwining his fingers with hers, then subtly rubbed his chin against the top of Victoria's head. Stay with me, okay? I really miss you. His breath on Victoria's ear made her breathing grow heavy. Victoria tilted her head back, traced his nose with her index finger, and said indulgently, all right, I'll indulge you this time. By the time Victoria finished her tryst with Dylan and returned home, it was past midnight. She felt a little uneasy, afraid Ethan might discover something amiss, but at the same time, she was quite practiced at this. After all, the Ethan of the past had never once noticed anything unusual. Victoria opened the door to her home and found the living room lights still on. A little puzzled, she called out Ethan's name. Ethan, why aren't you asleep yet? Are you still waiting for me? But no one responded. The living room was empty. Just then, Victoria's gaze was drawn to the photos on the table. When she saw what was in the pictures, her eyes instantly widened and her pupils constricted. Victoria felt a sense of suffocation. She looked at the photos, trembling all over. How was this possible? These were photos of her and Dylan. Who put them here? Victoria's hands trembled as she picked up the photos from the table, flipping through them one by one. The fear in her heart intensified, and the worst possible thought came to mind. Could these photos have been left by Ethan? Did Ethan find out? Just as she reached the last photo, she saw a slip of paper tucked underneath it. It was her abortion appointment slip. Victoria's heart instantly seized with panic. She murmured, Ethan, Ethan, I have to explain to him. Ethan, where are you? Saying this, she began searching for Ethan throughout the home, but when she went upstairs, she discovered that all of Ethan's clothes in the closet had been cleared out, and in the bedroom, the furniture and decor they had purchased together had been silently destroyed. Victoria realized a terrible truth. Ethan had discovered the truth. Ethan didn't want her anymore. No, she absolutely wouldn't let this happen. Victoria didn't even stop to put on a coat, rushing through the dark night to Westlake Research Institute. She waited alone outside the Westlake Research Institute gates until 8 in the morning before finally seeing Professor Miller. Professor Miller, do you know where Ethan is? He's gone. Where did he go? I beg you, please tell me. Okay. I can't live without him. By the end, Victoria's voice was overwhelmed by boundless terror. Professor Miller quietly stared at her deeply regretful face, then gently shook his head. I cannot tell you Ethan's whereabouts, because before he left, he specifically instructed me that he didn't want you to find him. He doesn't want to see you. Saying this, Professor Miller turned to leave, but Victoria grabbed Professor Miller's pant leg, kneeling before him right there. No, I beg you to tell me. If you don't, I'll stay here on my knees and won't leave. I have to see Ethan, no matter what. Even if it costs me my life. Victoria's words were incredibly resolute. Then have it your way. Professor Miller sighed deeply, brushed her off, and departed. I slowly opened my eyes to a pure white ceiling. You are awake. The doctor beside me smiled and said, Hello, my name is Miller. You can call me Drive. Sophia Miller, how are you feeling right now? Do you feel like you've forgotten anything important? My thoughts slowly returned, and I remembered why I was lying here. I was a research and development member at Westlake Research Institute. To test the effectiveness of the institute's newly developed specialized medicine for Alzheimer's disease, I personally participated in the clinical trial. In fact, this drug had been developed for a long time, but clinical trials had been delayed. Everyone considered this method to be too risky, so it was put on hold, and I was the only one willing to step forward and take the risk to save those patients. I looked at Drive, Sophia Miller's familiar features, and a smile touched my lips. Sophia Miller, it's you. Sophia Miller paused, then took off her mask, and said, surprised, Ethan, you remember me. It seems you haven't lost your memory. That's wonderful. Our drug development is effective. Sophia Miller was Professor Miller's daughter, and a key figure in the drug development department at Westlake Research Institute. At the same time, we had known each other for years and had worked side by side as colleagues. Next, Sophia Miller asked me some routine questions, which I answered without hesitation. Sophia Miller excitedly announced, it looks like there are no major issues. The preliminary results of the experiment show that our research is very successful. She paused and said, but for caution's sake, you still need to complete a questionnaire. The data from it will help us thoroughly check if you've forgotten anything significant. However, this is just a formality. I don't think you'll have any problems. I nodded, took the questionnaire, and began filling it out carefully. When I reached the partner section of the questionnaire, I felt a sudden emptiness in my heart. Then, I calmly selected none. After I finished the questionnaire, Sophia Miller took it to her office for careful review. But in less than half an hour, she rushed back to my hospital room. Why do you look so anxious? What happened? Ethan, why did you write that you don't have a partner on this questionnaire? She asked, looking at my questionnaire with confusion. I nodded, as if it were obvious. That's right, I'm unmarried. But Sophia Miller frowned deeply and asked again, probing, Ethan, do you truly have no memory of your partner at all? I was a little bewildered. What are you talking about? I've never had a partner. Sophia Miller, she gently shook her head. No, Ethan, you've been married for 5 years. I was stunned. The information conveyed in those words felt completely alien to me. I couldn't help but tease her lightly, laughing. What kind of joke are you playing? How could I be married for 5 years? All right, I've recovered well now. You don't need to tell me ridiculous jokes just to amuse me. But the worry on Sophia Miller's face did not diminish in the slightest. Just then, a staff member rushed into the hospital room. Drive, Sophia Miller. There's a woman outside. She insists on seeing Ethan. She also declared that if she doesn't see Ethan, she absolutely won't leave. Do you want to see her? I answered before Sophia Miller could. It's fine. I can see her. Actually, I was also curious what kind of woman could have such a strong resolve toward me, claiming she wouldn't leave until she saw me. As soon as I entered the reception room, I saw the very beautiful woman with striking and vibrant features. She sat quietly there, and even though there were heavy dark circles under her eyes, they couldn't conceal her inherent charm. Seeing me enter, she immediately stood up, visibly agitated. "Ethan, I finally found you. I begged Professor Miller for 7 full days, before he would tell me your address." As she spoke, her eyes grew slightly moist. I pulled a tissue from the table and handed it to her. "Madam, please calm down. Who are you? Do you have something important to discuss with me?" The woman's expression froze for a moment, then she asked in disbelief, "Ethan, what are you saying?" "I'm Victoria." "You're Victoria? Don't pretend not to know me on purpose. I know I made a mistake and angered you, and I'm here to beg for your forgiveness." Victoria took a step forward, trying to grasp my hand, but I quickly dodged away. For some reason, I felt an innate aversion to her proximity. Had this woman and I truly known each other? I lightly coughed and said seriously, "Victoria, right? Miss Victoria, as I just said. I don't know you. Please show some self-respect." Victoria stared intently at me, her voice trembling as she said, "No, Ethan, you can't treat me like a stranger just because you are angry with me. We dated for 3 years, married for 5, that's a full 8 years. How can you look at me with such cold eyes now? Ethan, I know I was wrong. You can't imagine what these 7 days without you have been like. I haven't been able to eat or sleep, and all I could think about was you. Please, I'm begging you, just give me one more chance to make things right. I'd even die for you. Ethan, we've loved each other for so many years. You can't just pretend not to know me." Listening to her heart-wrenching words, my heart remained perfectly calm, feeling no emotional response whatsoever, because everything she spoke of was completely unfamiliar to my mind. Seeing my unmoving expression, Victoria's tears began to fall uncontrollably. Just then, Sophia Miller appeared, stepping between Victoria and me. She stopped the agitated Victoria and said calmly, "Miss Victoria, please calm down. Since you learned about Ethan from Professor Miller, you should also know that Ethan participated in a drug trial, and this kind of experiment might lead to memory loss, and his current symptom is he hasn't forgotten other important things, but he has specifically forgotten all memories related to you. But Ethan has just woken up, and his condition hasn't fully recovered. To avoid affecting his further recovery, please leave for now, and don't say anything else here that might disturb Ethan's emotions." Victoria was stunned for a moment, as if she was trying to process Sophia Miller's words, which were dense with information. She suddenly looked up and asked in disbelief, "What are you talking about? You said Ethan forgot about me. How is that possible? We've been together for so long. How could he just forget me like that? You incompetent doctors. What did you do to Ethan? Restore him immediately. Give me back the old Ethan." Watching Victoria's emotions grow increasingly agitated, spiraling out of control, Sophia Miller had no choice but to summon 2 security guards to forcibly drag Victoria out. After watching Victoria struggle as the security guards dragged her away, the inexplicable feeling of aversion in my heart also disappeared. Instead, my mood gradually brightened. I couldn't help but wonder, was what she said true? Was she really my wife, and had I actually forgotten her? But I quickly shook my head, dismissing the thought. Victoria's appearance was just a minor interlude for me. After all, I genuinely didn't know her, nor could I recall any of the past she spoke of with me. 3 days later, as I sat reading in my hospital room, someone dressed as a nurse walked in. She came up to me, staring unblinkingly. As I wondered why, the nurse slowly took off her hat and mask, revealing it was Victoria. "You are here again." I looked at her warily, reaching for the phone by my bed. Victoria pressed down on my hand, looking earnestly at me and shaking her head. "Ethan, don't rush to send me away. Please give me 2 minutes, and I'll explain everything to you." Then, she pulled a marriage certificate from her bag, and opened it for me to see. I didn't understand what she meant by this, however, the next second, when I saw the photo on the marriage certificate, my entire body instantly froze. On it, it really was a photo of Victoria and me, and the names written on the marriage certificate were indeed hers and mine. So, everything Victoria said was true. Victoria and I were a married couple of 5 years, and I had forgotten her due to the experiment. I suddenly felt a dull ache in my head. This marriage certificate had an embossed seal, and all the details proved it wasn't fake. I looked up at her and murmured, "But I really don't know you, and I truly don't remember anything about you." Victoria looked at me with deep affection, smiling as she shook her head. It's okay, Ethan. Even if you've forgotten me, it doesn't matter, as long as you are still here. I've already decided. If you've forgotten, then let it be forgotten. Forget all the unpleasant things that happened between us. Saying this, she took my hand and asked very earnestly, Ethan, shall we start over? We still have so many years ahead of us, and I'll make you fall in love with me again. My mind went blank. I couldn't process her words anymore. Victoria slipped a slip of paper into my hand. Ethan, I have to go now. Call me anytime if you miss me. Then, she gave a mischievous smile. Of course, even if you don't call me, I'll come find you. See you tomorrow. Watching her departing back, I couldn't quite collect myself for a long time. No sooner had Victoria left than Sophia Miller arrived. Ethan, based on your condition, we've developed a specialized medicine for you. Would you like to try it? It might help restore your memory. Okay, bring it. My answer was so calm that it surprised Sophia Miller, but the medicine had no side effects. At worst, it would simply be ineffective. So, Sophia Miller said no more, and let me take the medicine. The medicine took effect quickly. Soon, I felt drowsy, then lay down on the bed and fell asleep. In that sleep, I had a very long dream. The dream was so real that it was heart-wrenching. When I woke up again, I found tears streaming down my face without my realizing it. Sophia Miller was standing by my hospital bed, looking worried. Seeing me awake, she quickly asked, how do you feel? I gave a bitter laugh. While I was relieved that the medicine development was successful, a hint of sadness inevitably seeped into my heart. Yes, I remembered all the wrong things Victoria had done to me. I remembered all the trials and tribulations in our relationship, all her betrayals and deceptions. Without time to wallow in sorrow, I quickly gathered the research team for a meeting. I proposed combining the key formulas of these two drugs, hoping to successfully develop a cure for Alzheimer's disease. By the time the meeting ended, it was past midnight. I rested for a few hours, then took yesterday's meeting materials and prepared to return to Ocean View. I still needed to apply to Professor Miller and my superiors for further drug development. Sophia Miller accompanied me back, but just as we were getting into the car, Victoria rushed over. Ethan, are you leaving? Are you going back to Ocean View? Take my car. I'll drive you back to our home. Perhaps it will help you recover your memory. No need. I didn't even look at her. Continuing to walk without stopping, Victoria hurried 2 steps to catch up, grabbed my arm, and forcing a smile, asked, Ethan, what's wrong with you today? Why are you so cold to me? Has something happened? I gave a cold laugh. Victoria, I think the photos and the abortion appointment slip I left for you at home should explain everything, shouldn't they? You and Dylan are so in love. What makes you think I could still be passionate about you? I don't want to make this ugly. Let go. Victoria's face revealed a look of surprise and joy. Ethan, you've recovered your memory. Listen to me. I met Dylan when I was drunk. The bar lights were dim then, and he looked so much like you when you were 18, which is why I was confused by him. Then I made one mistake after another, but I truly know I was wrong. Enough. I cut her off. I don't want to hear your grand excuses. I don't even care about how you met him, or your reasons for cheating anymore, because I no longer love you. Victoria, we are over. After saying that, I got into the car without hesitation and closed the door. Victoria completely panicked, her face showing a fear and distress I had never seen before. She cried and pulled at my car door, not even noticing her hands bleeding. I felt nothing and told the driver, Driver, you can go now. After returning to Westlake Research Institute in Ocean View, I fully immersed myself in my work. Due to tight deadlines and heavy tasks, I ate and slept at the institute every day, so Victoria had no way of seeing me, even if she wanted to. During this time, she constantly called and texted me after I blocked her. She used other numbers to beg for my forgiveness. Eventually, I just turned off my phone, completely cutting myself off from the world. It was only after the drug passed inspection and entered the mass production phase that I learned what had been happening outside during that time. I never expected Victoria to stoop so low. To win back my forgiveness, she went as far as to spend a significant amount of Sterling Enterprises funds, booking city-wide digital billboards to repeatedly broadcast her public apology to me. The sheer scale of the broadcast quickly ignited widespread discussion. Initially, people were simply marveling at Victoria's extravagance and apparent deep affection, with many quickly jumping on board and starting to ship our couple. But soon, questions arose, and people began to dig into what Victoria could have possibly done to anger me enough to warrant such a grand, public apology. Before the online commentators could delve deeper, Dylan voluntarily came forward. It turned out that after I had left, Victoria learned about Dylan's persistent provocations against me. She was furious, not only cutting off all contact with Dylan but also ensuring he lost his marketing job at the Hideaway as punishment. Dylan had originally schemed that once I was out of the picture, he could smoothly marry Victoria and eventually take over Sterling Enterprises. Naturally, he couldn't tolerate such a drastic turn of events now, driven by a "if I can't have her, no one can" mindset. Dylan shockingly leaked evidence of his affair with Victoria. This revelation sent shockwaves. Victoria's devoted wife facade instantly crumbled under the weight of irrefutable evidence, and her image plummeted from grace to disgrace. The fallout was immense. Not only was Victoria condemned across the internet, but Sterling Enterprises' market value also plunged dramatically. The Meng family's former glory was now irrevocably lost. Armed with the evidence I possessed, I filed for divorce in court. On the day the divorce was finalized, I encountered Victoria again. She looked utterly haggard, her eyes vacant, yet, the moment she saw me, a flicker of life returned to her eyes. "Ethan, I was in a rush to return to the Westlake Research Institute, and had no intention of getting tangled up with her. Victoria, I don't think there's anything left for us to say." Victoria placed a hand on her stomach, forcing a smile as she spoke. "Ethan, even though we're divorced now, I still won't give up on you." Her expression gradually hardened. "One day, it'll make you come back to me." I merely dismissed it as nonsense, paying her no further mind. But when I got home and lay in bed, a sudden realization struck me. I had seemingly overlooked something crucial. I recalled Victoria's subtle gesture of placing her hand on her stomach. She had lost so much weight so quickly from the ordeal that even the slight swelling of her abdomen was barely noticeable. But I knew she had only scheduled an abortion at the time, and what if she hadn't gone through with it at all? I reached for my phone, intending to contact Victoria. Just then, Sophia Miller called me. She informed me that Victoria had been injured and hospitalized. It turned out that shortly after our divorce was finalized that day, Victoria returned home to find Dylan lurking inside her house. Dylan had lost his job and been publicly shamed online. Now his face was instantly recognizable to everyone. Not only was he unable to work in marketing for the Hideaway, but he had also become a pariah, universally condemned. So he resolved to get revenge on Victoria. That night, the two got into a heated argument that escalated into a fight. In the chaos, Dylan pulled out a knife and viciously stabbed Victoria in the abdomen. By the time Victoria was rushed to the hospital, the baby had no pulse, but thankfully, she clung to life. Learning the full extent of what happened, I was left with a profound sense of sorrow. 2 weeks later, Dylan was sentenced to 10 years in prison for intentional assault, and for fleeing after committing a crime, following his successful apprehension. As for Victoria, unable to cope with the trauma of losing her child, she developed a severe mental illness. I heard she was committed to a psychiatric hospital, where she spent her days muttering to people, "Where is my child? Have you seen my child?" Victoria's increasingly erratic behavior often led to her being assaulted by other patients in the psychiatric hospital. However, I didn't pay much attention to any of these events. After all, they had become complete strangers to me. A year later, the breakthrough medicine I developed was successfully launched, saving countless patients suffering from Alzheimer's disease. My initial act of self-testing the drug was chronicled in articles, earning widespread acclaim. Standing on the highest podium in the medical field, I truly realized this was the ultimate purpose I sought in life. From then on, I would continue to dedicate myself to medical research, embarking on a new phase in my life.